Our next watercolor live session will take place this Monday, the 6th of July. And this subject is beautiful. It's got this perfect balance between soft shape, diffused shape, suggested shape, defined shape, lost shape, which just makes that have more atmosphere, more storytelling to the subject. So this is what we can also do in watercolor, and it's all about edges. It's about the way that we use the edges in our painting. So last week we were developing this, and I told you, those of you were there last week, that we're going to continue along that line this week, working wet in wet, particularly for the foreground. You're going to see that beautiful foreground in this subject, working that wet on wet to create the lost and the suggested shapes, but also going in and adding the defined shapes, the suggested shapes in the rest of the painting. However, this is the most important part. If you paint too much wet and wet, too much fused shapes in your paintings, watercolors in general, tend to look wishy-washy. If you use too much defined shape in a traditional painting, you end up with something which looks too stiff. So there is a balance that we need to think of. How much fused shape, how much suggested shape, and how much defined shape. Now, this is actually a ratio that does exist. Watercolorists, I don't think really use it so much, but it's definitely something that I'm going to show you on Monday, where I found it, where I understood it. It's an oil painter, someone who I think is actually still living. I don't know that. I'm going to have to check. Probably my most favorite oil painter. I love his work. And you're going to learn how this ratio, when you use it in your painting, so adaptable in watercolors, just helps you get the best of the suggested, the lost, and the defined shape without getting that over tight or over wishy-washy watercolor. So that's what we're going to be doing, and not necessarily keeping the defined shapes where they are or the lost shapes where they are. We're going to be mixing and matching them a little bit in this subject. So that's what we're going to be doing on Monday. And if you want to paint along with me, honestly, the lives are the place to ask me for questions. They are the place to ask when you've got something that you're not sure of or you want feedback on. Join the Monday lives. Get the feedback so that you're not basically repeating the same sort of mistakes over and over again and basically not progressing with your paintings. So if you paint along with me during the live, you'll get that feedback. You don't have to paint during the live, however. You can also sit and just watch, and you're also able to ask questions, and so you can still get that feedback. So during the lives, you'll get the feedback. We'll focus on when to use what technique to get what effect, and every subject is a bit different. However, there is a ratio that you can keep in mind which will give you the best effects, and this is really what I want to teach you this week. Now, if you can't join us on Monday, just by inscribing, you'll also get the link to the replay, and in both cases, so whether you come or whether you get the replay, you'll get live access to the replay, and you can watch the session over and over again. This is actually a really important live because too many people find they overwork their subjects and make tight paintings. And many people who actually try to go into sort of the suggested and the fused direction have a tendency of painting too much fused and suggested shape to the point that the painting looks a bit lost, not really understandable, or even wishy-washy. So there's that balance between technique that needs to be understood, but then also understanding which technique is actually the best one for the job that you're trying to create. That's what we're going to be doing this Monday, the 6th of July. So I shall say, I'll see you on Monday.